When I first saw Jameel and his posts on Instagram for Fathernetics, the podcast that he hosts, I knew that I needed to have him on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. He's raw, he's honest, he's real, but he also brings the humor and the lightness and the fun of being a dad into the conversation. He's my guest today, and I am truly honored to have you hear our conversation. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone. I am joined today by fellow podcaster Jameel Mayers of Phoenix. So in a totally different time zone, he's still enjoying the morning while I'm well into the afternoon. I wanted to say welcome, Jameel. Please tell everyone about who you are and the members of your family.
So yes, I am in Phoenix, and just so you know, it's approximately 110 degrees outside, just in case anyone's looking to visit Phoenix. But um, as you correctly mentioned, I'm the host of Fathernetics, which is a podcast that's really geared and centered around the dynamics tied to fatherhood. You
Mm-hmm.
know, where we get our fatherhood knowledge from, perhaps, and how we're looking to impart that to future generations. I am married 22 years to my husband, Nicholas, and I have a 12-year-old son through the adoption process here in Arizona. So fun times, lots of exciting information, and certainly grateful to be a part of your podcast.
It's amazing to be able to have the different voices of queer parents finding space on the podcasting platform so that people can learn more about how our families may be the similar and may be very different than cis presenting heterosexual relationships, because how we become parents is often very different.
Mhm.
And you talked about the fact that you are an adoptive parent. Can you talk about what your journey was like? You and Nick, well, let's go back. How, 22 years with Nicholas. That's a
It's a big
that's
number.
that's a big number. That's something to be celebrated for sure.
You know, when we first started dating, there was a whole lot of when you had like 5 years and 10 years, people were like, wow, you've really made it.
Hmm.
Uh, just because it wasn't such a comfortable number to hit. There was always like the next thing someone was looking for, or there was a challenge,
Hmm.
some legalities come into play, all sorts of circumstances that lead us all in different directions. But right off the bat, Nicholas and I were just in the right frame of mind, the right position, the right state, the right city, which was in Houston, by the way, is where we met. And we've been together ever since. So it's been fantastic.
So, I mean, this my podcast is audio only, so people can't see you perhaps, but to look at you, you and Nicholas, my guess is were pretty young when you first met. So that's a young age to be, and I'm making assumptions here, but I would assume that's a young age to make the kind of commitment that you made, and that's pretty powerful.
Well, again, I harken back to how complex it was back then, and probably to some degree it is these days to date, right? To meet
Mhm.
someone naturally. You're out at a restaurant, you can see someone from across the way and make a connection, perhaps venture over and say hello. That wasn't necessarily something that was available to us back then. So it was a lot of meeting online and things of that nature. Gay.com, if you remember that,
Mhm.
anybody on the podcast, is how we met. So it was before apps and smartphones and things of that nature. I think Nicholas and I were just at a position mentally where we were just over the search, right? The
Right.
the profiles, the conversations, do we match? And then the kind of superficial dating rituals that we all engage in at
Mhm.
first before things get deep. And we said, look, it's hard to find a partner We found each other, we jive, we match, the chemistry is right, all the magic in the world is right where we're sitting. So why go anywhere else? And that remains true today. So
Yeah. Well, there weren't a lot of examples of long-term, long-standing queer couples when we were growing up, I would argue.
not at all. And the visibility of how that really worked and existed wasn't there, right? Representation,
Hmm.
right? So we didn't see it on TV. We didn't read books. No one really talked about it. It was taboo. So a lot of it was make it up as you go and hope for the best,
Hmm.
which is why I value what you and I are doing with podcasting, with writing books, with being present. It's an opportunity for this generation, including YouTube, right?
Hmm.
To showcase that being queer, LGBTQ community, I call them the LGBTQ mafia, right? Is available, it's out there. They have stories, it's being shared, it's normal. It's going back generations, decades, centuries. It's existed for so long. It's natural. It's just a lot of cultural and societal pressures have made it what it is today.
Absolutely. And it's certainly come to the forefront with people on either side shouting back and forth about it all. Right now, especially, it feels like there's a lot of very angry, very loud voices arguing on both sides of this of the thought process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you've been together a long time. When did the discussion of children pop into the dynamic?
So I think roughly pretty earlier on in our relationship, we knew we wanted to have kids, right? We wanted to expand our family, but it was just a touch point, right? It was one of those bookmarks. And then roughly about, I would say 9 years ago or so, we revisited that conversation now that we had a position to actually go forth and conquer, if you will. We were financially stable. We both were employed. We had a home. We traveled a lot. We had great friends. Now it was like what's next? What's the next chapter? And that's what invited us to really look into what was available. And that was a journey in itself. When we
Sure.
first started this process, there was no research material. There was no go find out what it looks like for a gay couple to go through the foster to adopt process. Yes, lots of reference material for straight couples, for traditional families, right?
Hmm.
And and we can all read that, but we don't see ourselves in that. We kind of read it and go, okay, the framework is there, but how will that work for us,
Right.
knowing that there are built-in challenges, right? Discrimination around every corner. And we certainly experienced a little bit of that, but we were grateful that we were at least able to get into an agency that was able to support us through that process initially.
And so you looked into the foster to adopt program and you then to do because it's different everywhere. I mean, I know across Canada it's different from province to province. From people I've spoken to, I understand it's different from state to state. Were you still in Texas when you started this process, or were you in Arizona at that time?
So we started it in Arizona,
Okay.
and I'm only familiar with the Arizona process, obviously, because it started here and ended here.
Right.
But it starts with finding an agency that will support your licensing process to then be the go-between between you as the adoptive or foster parent and the state of Arizona. And what I would say is they give you a sheet, 10 agencies, right? To say, please call, find the match that is comfortable for you. Ask all the right questions. And I would say 9 out of 10 were not interested in LGBTQ couples. There was a lot
Wow.
of Christian based, traditional family type language
Hmm.
that was an instant red flag for us. Um, Connecting with them verbally or on their website, it was made very clear that this is the path, right? They weren't outright saying we don't want gay couples, but it was we prefer traditional families, men and women, husband and wife, or straight men or straight women. But we got lucky enough to find that one agency that said, "Hey, you want kids? We have kids. You're a great family. Let's match you up. Let's find out what to do." So that's the path that we went. We went through the certification process, became foster parents, and got on the track to foster to adopt is what the status is called here in Arizona.
And so you mark that from the outset that you're interested in fostering to adopt. Do you have to foster a certain number of children so that they can see how you foster before you can move on that path? Or do you just take that, you just say what we're looking to do is adopt a child eventually. So the best placements with us would be children for whom it's unlikely that a reunification can happen.
So there's really only two statuses. It's either you want to be a foster parent or you want to foster to adopt. The foster parent ideally is someone who just supports a child that's going through a circumstance or a situation with the intent to have them reunified with their parents,
Mhm.
or at least have them in some sort of a situation that's not a forever home, is what they call it. Foster to adopt is what we signed up for, which means that from the start you may get a lot of foster kids, varying ages, depending on what your preference is, in hopes that you will be paired with someone who is looking for a forever home, right? And the circumstances around that are all sorts of ups and downs, right? You may get a kid today and that's the path, and that may change 6 months from now. Now they're going back to their parents. So there's a lot of emotional pull and mental readiness that they put us through with that certification, if you will.
Mhm.
A lot of direct conversation, right? This is what you need to be ready for.
Yeah,
This is what you're signing up for. So if this makes you feel some type of way, maybe this is not for you, because when you get a child that has gone through trauma and you are not ready to support that because you have to deal with perhaps your own trauma,
sure.
now you're just kind of adding to a circumstance that's unfortunate, and the kid has nothing to do with how they got to you,
Right.
but they still have to go through the process. It's a machine that's going to produce something. We never know what it is, but it's going to produce something. So we want to make sure that those parents are ready for that process.
That makes perfect sense. And on some level, I feel as though really anyone who wants to be a parent should probably take that kind of training, whether they're
I
planning to
talk about
adopt
this
or not.
all the time. You hit the nail on the head. The intentional parenting is what I talk about on my podcast. LGBTQ couples have to go through so many hoops
Hmm.
before even getting a glimmer of a chance of getting a child, right? And
Hmm.
oftentimes there's some sort of a certification or a class or a background screening, which we had to do. We had to be, I think we had to do drug screening as well. I mean, there was a lot that we had to do
And it's
paperwork.
invasive.
It is. Oh, I mean, the stack of papers that we had to fill out is crazy. But of course, the juxtaposition here is a traditional family. And I poke fun at this. Someone goes out drinking, comes home, and then 3 months later they have a kid. And it's like, wow, okay, fantastic. I know how it works. That's biology. There's nothing we can do about that, but there's such rigor that goes into being a parent when you're an LGBTQ couple.
Hmm.
Some of that, even if we had a 1% of that, that was, made required for any couple that's looking to have a child, maybe society would look a little different.
I don't disagree with you. I think that it's funny that you use that analogy. I often say somebody has an extra glass of wine on a Saturday night and then they find themselves expecting to become
Exactly.
parents. But
Triplets.
yeah. Well, it happens. It
Yes.
happens.
That's
But I mean, and no, and all joking aside, if you haven't made that conscious decision to become a parent and it happens by circumstance that's the path that you're now on, I mean, at least with the way that you went about creating your family, you got to make conscious decisions along the way about what you could and couldn't accept within the process of how you created your family, but also within how you were going to navigate parenting once a child did come into your home. And that's something that people who just accidentally get pregnant or surprise, that they don't take that time. Or in my experience and people I've spoken to, they haven't taken the time to do that inner work that they need to do.
Well, we neglect to understand that expanding your family has a visceral impact on the parent, right? You're going from being single
Hmm.
to being a parent. Your life is a little bit different because now you have to manage a small individual, and it goes beyond that, right? We have to model
Hmm.
for a small individual, right? We have to be strong as a person to then be able to support them. If you don't know yourself well enough,
Hmm.
when you do get a child, you will start to experience that which you were hiding somewhere, right? Because children have a way of exposing all these little things that you didn't know. You thought you were patient. Now you realize patience is 5 levels, and
Hmm.
you're only at level 2. We need to get to level 5, right?
Yep.
Your things like politics, things like religion, how would you impact that? Things like the circle of friends that you have around you, how they speak, how they engage, what are their thoughts? Are they travel friends? Are they not travel friends? Are they the ones you cry to at night? Are they the ones that come to babysit? Are they the ones that are no longer around because now you're not the drinking buddy anymore because you have to be at home for your little one? So it's all these dynamics as an adult you never really think about. You're thinking about, do I have a job? Do I have a home? Do I have a car? Yes. And those aren't necessarily the easier things to do. Those are
Hmm.
just the things that come to mind. The psychological impact is unknown until
Hmm.
you're actually in it. And it's different for every one of us.
Yeah, and it's not until somebody says something a particular way that it may strike you and you may realize, oh my gosh, I actually have trauma associated with that or questions associated with that because I hadn't really processed when that happened in my own life and now somebody mentioned something and so it's a journey that you get to go on to learn deeper levels of yourself so that you can be the best human you can be and to be the parent you want to be, right?
I tell them it's always cute until they start speaking, because when they start speaking, then they have opinions, and kids have no filter. So, where in society we've learned, we notice something, but we don't have to put a voice to it. It's the reverse for most kids. They voice it, and then they're waiting for you to have some sort of a reaction for them to know, is that a good reaction? Is that a bad reaction? Should I not? And so we have to learn as parents not to be as triggered,
Hmm.
right? Is this a teaching moment? Are they talking about somebody over there, or did they notice something with me that
Yeah.
I am sensitive about and forgot I was sensitive about? And the kid has just said it so flippantly. It's like, oh, I mean, they're not wrong. Oftentimes that's the case. They're not wrong with their observations. It's just like, oh wow, I probably wouldn't have said it that way. But I mean, that's the way they said it. So,
It's out
and
there
I
now.
love that about kids. It's so innocent.
It is. It
Her,
is.
I have a 12-year-old, which is why I'm kind of going down this rabbit hole. He knows better.
So, so how old was your 12-year-old when you adopted them?
So we adopted him 8 years ago.
Okay.
And so let me reframe that. He came to us 8 years ago. He was adopted a year and a half after he came to us. So he was 4. He was adopted when he was close to 6 years old.
Okay.
So we had him for a year and a half going through that entire process. So the foster to adopt process took that long. And it's going to court, it's having, social workers visit, it's having home inspections, it's having visitation with bio parents and the ups and downs that go with all of those visits. And it is a careful dance of trying to introduce them to our family, our morals, while they're still attached and tied to that trauma agent, if you will, that has put them in a situation to begin with. And I don't know if you know this, but I wrote a book about this
I was actually going to
because,
ask you about that.
well, I wrote it because there wasn't anything available back then. I was looking for literature that said, hey, if you're going through this as an LGBTQ couple, here is an example of how we did it.
Hmm.
Granted, they may not go through the same exact experience, but just being able to say someone did it and they survived. That
Yes.
feels good to read. We also have some other adoptive parents that went through the process, foster to adopt process at the same time that we did. It's how we kind of bonded, if you will. And their process was completely different than ours. Ours was more, I would say, more Disney. Uh,
Okay.
theirs was a little bit more tumultuous because they had to deal with the bio parents who were not happy about the process and would call and report them to the state and
Oh.
don't do this and you can't do that. And there are little nuances. Don't cut their hair because they're still my kids, so they're not your kids, so what do? You can't cut their hair. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's a process, so mentally you just kind of have to be ready for it.
Do you still have connection with your child's bio parents?
We elected for a closed adoption because of the pre-existing trauma.
Okay.
We wanted to make sure that any kind of ties to that while those individuals were going through their own journey, right? Whether it is to get better or continue their behavior, we didn't want that to impact what we were trying to do, which is to stabilize his life.
Hmm.
And he has two little sisters as well, so it's three kids that were all impacted by their behaviors. So we opted for a closed adoption. I do know that open adoption is out there. I think it's becoming less and less common. The more people I talk to, they're like, but
Hmm.
he knows he's adopted. He's aware of his origin story to a certain degree. He's kind of starting to forget a lot about it, which is great.
Hmm.
Um, we're not going to hide any of that from him. We want him to, when he's ready, we've got documentation and stuff like that he can read and have and keep. But Nicholas and myself, believe in the transparency of this whole situation.
Hmm.
We don't want any of that to be a surprise to him. And here's the thing: we're a same sex couple parenting a child. It is obvious to a certain
Somehow.
degree that
Yeah.
if not one of us, both of us have adopted, right? If we didn't do
Yes.
surrogacy, then one of us has adopted this child to some degree. So we don't want him to have to fumble over that and go, well, I didn't know that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if you've planted those seeds really since he was little and first with you, and you were talking about adoption and that kind of thing, then it just becomes part of his common vernacular that he's talking about his how he came to be as part of this family and how your family was created.
And it kind of segues into him being able to, because he has friends at school that are also adopted. So it's more like, hey, it's okay. I'm adopted too.
Hmm.
And that's the kind of human that we want to bring into this world. Someone who can say, it's okay. This situation that you're in or circumstance is great. Do you have two moms? Oh, well, I have two dads. Let me tell you how awesome that is. Or
Hmm.
maybe you don't. You have a mom and a dad. That's fantastic. Now you have, a great dynamic in your home. There are single parents as well, and that's okay too. I don't know how they do it, but single parents, my hat
Right.
goes off to them.
Yeah. And lots of them by choice. And I've spoken to some single parents by choice, and I think that that's a powerful and very brave step to take on your own.
Would agree with that because I am blessed to have Nicholas with me because when I've had it, we do a high five and we trade out. So and, then, and that's such a blessing for us to keep our peace of mind.
Yeah.
when needed. Because yeah, there's a lot of surprises that come with raising kids, and if you don't have an opportunity to decompress, then it can be crazy. So my hat's off all the time to single parents who have to wait till 11 o'clock at night when the house is quiet to drink that glass of wine, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back.
Gaddies. We're the first brand made by and for gay dads, built to celebrate the families we've created. Our tees, hats, and hoodies aren't just clothes. They're conversation starters, connection makers, and reminders that you're part of a bigger community. Whether you're at the playground, the pride parade, or owning the dance floor, Gaddies make sure that you feel seen and celebrated. Find us at HEYGADDIES.com and on Instagram at HEYGADDIES. Gaddies, because every dad deserves his moment.
You mentioned that your child has biological siblings. They're not
Mm-hmm.
your child's not connected to their bio parents. Is there a connection at all? And does the state ask for there to be a connection to the bio siblings at all? Or is that again something that if he decides he wants to investigate that when he's an adult, he can do that?
So prior to adoption, they had what's called a visitation. So I think it's every Thursday or every other Thursday, mandated by the state. They would visit with their bio father.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was all three of them would visit at the same time. So he was very aware of his sisters, during that time. We've met them. Um, Now, once he was adopted, the connection remains. We're not hiding them from him. What happens is they end up moving away to different states or to different cities, and it becomes a little challenge to keep them connected. And since they're young,
Yeah.
they're not able to just connect on their own, then it becomes the responsibility of the parents to do so. So every now and again, we do have an opportunity to connect them. Um, they'll come visit for his birthdays if they're in a neighboring city. There's one that's in a different state, so that doesn't
Hmm.
can't happen. Um, but we want to again encourage him to find what's best for him when the time is right. If he's like, "Hey, I want to connect with my sister's," great. Now here again, another layer that I think any parent, regardless of the dynamic, is not accustomed to is cell phones.
Right?
Dum dum dum. And I
Yeah.
say that because my parents didn't have to deal with it because when I was growing up, cell phones wasn't a thing. It's only this generation raising now preteens and teenagers that are like, okay, how do we manage this?
Hmm.
How do we now keep them safe from this baby computer that they have in their hands? And I say that to say that that is one way to try to keep him and his sister connected, but not really. Because he doesn't really know them, right? He knows of them. He doesn't really know them. Didn't grow up with them. They're more like friends at this point. And I'm hoping that that grows into something fantastic when they get into their late teens and early adulthood. But for now, we just kind of have to better manage connectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're right. You want to be able to manage it to the best of your abilities so that you and Nicholas continue to be aware of how things are unfolding, but in this technologically savvy world that we live in, and our kids are so much more technologically sound than we are. And I think about my own two that I birthed are in their mid to late 20s now, and my stepdaughter's 19, and even the difference in those groups
Yeah.
to and those kids. The 19-year-old, absolutely full experience and life and understanding of using a cell phone, where my kids were like, social media, I'll have a cell phone so we can text if we need to. But even then, it's hard to get in touch with them because,
Don't call me. Text me. Don't call me.
yes, yes. Well, the older ones are more call me, don't text me because I'm not going to answer your text, where the youngest one is like, text me, don't call me.
Oh, yeah. I talk about a lot of the fear that parents have as well with kids in this generation. You know, social media to me is an area that I'm kind of relearning
Hmm.
again with trying to build a community online for the podcast and other things and pet projects that I'm doing. Engaging with folks is really easy for me, but it also trying to navigate the pitfalls and the traps and the things that seem too good to be real and still trying to grow. That for me as an adult is a challenge. So I can only imagine a 12-year-old,
Yeah,
right? Trying to do social media, which he doesn't. He probably will never have a social media account till he's 12, 18, 12, till he's 18 and
yeah.
moving out of the house, because at that point, I don't have to worry about you're grown.
Hmm.
But right now, it's like there's so many like child safety things on his phone, and you can't go here and you can't go online and you have to have internet, and you can only talk to these 5 friends because I programmed them in your phone. You can't add anybody else because it's locked and you can't do. So it's like, but they find ways around it.
Sure.
They're tech savvy. So it's like it's just an additional layer of stress that I care not to have, but I recognize that it's here. I don't want to hide it from him. I don't want him to wake up at 18 and go, "Ooh, social media, what is that?" But I want him to be distilled in his knowledge.
And he's 12. You want him to still be a kid. And there's something
Yeah.
about social media that sort of feels like it slams them out of childhood and out of the innocence. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Some of the innocence is just stripped away with social media. And you take a child who's been through the system, who already has a sense of whether it's sort of an internal understanding sense or just you as a parent know he knows about how crappy life can be. You don't need to shove it down his throat by
Yeah.
dropping social media in his lap and saying, here's more trauma.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just, interacting with the wrong person, right? Not knowing who you're talking to, who you're really talking to. It then goes into the news that you consume
Hmm.
and the kind of jokes that are being told that are not appropriate, but are oriented for kids.
Hmm.
Even something like kids YouTube is for us, it's a bit dangerous because things land on there and they're it's kind of like watching The Simpsons.
Okay.
It's fun for the kids. They're laughing because Bart Simpson is funny and very immature, but there are hidden jokes in there for adults to enjoy as well, right?
Yeah.
Those are the jokes that they walk away with and they go to school and tell. So it's like, oh, you told the adult version of the Simpsons kids joke. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
So you have to be so vigilant with what they consume. It's a 24-hour job.
It is. It is. Parenting children now is not for the faint of heart. That's for sure. You have to be all in 24/7.
And it's the intentionality,
Yeah.
right? That a lot of LGBTQ couples have. They've spent 5 years sometimes before they've gotten their first kid. I talked to a lot of couples who have gone through the surrogacy process,
Hmm.
and it's years
Hmm.
and thousands of dollars before they can have their first kid. So it's like they've practiced, they're prepared as much as you can be, right?
Sure.
Because once you have a kid, then all bets are off. But you do everything you can to be mentally ready for this kid that, if you were in a traditional relationship, would have took you 5 minutes.
Yeah. 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 And then the other part of it is that there's a lot of members of the queer community who become parents who do have a social media presence, but because they're putting themselves out there as queer individuals, they're seeing and feeling that backlash and hearing those hate-filled comments and I mean, I talk to parents all the time who have to go through and edit their comment section on their posts because they're just trying to share the beauty of their family and their life with the world and the people who want to celebrate with them, and they have to take out the comments that because they don't want their children to grow up and go back and look through their social media feed and see the hate.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have not come across that yet. Um, my Instagram is still growing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I am well aware that what I am doing, what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
is going to attract everyone, right? Everyone's got an opinion, and we all have a right to share our opinions. But should we, right?
Right. What purpose does it
Are we
serve?
adults enough to know whether your opinion is this the place for your opinion, or are you just picking a fight? So I do think that editing some of those comments has value because other parents to be
Mm-hmm.
will read those comments
Sure.
and they want to be encouraged. They want to be supported, even if it's indirectly.
Mm-hmm.
So I think again, representation matters. I don't believe that fighting in the comments is helpful because you have your keyboard warriors that will go all day. So it's like, is the intent to educate or is the intent to win?
Mm-hmm.
Because by winning, you may be doing yourself a disservice. So I do value conversations. I want to talk to people of all
Sure.
walks. You don't understand our process. Let's talk about it. You don't agree with my life. Let's talk about it. But if you're going to argue and tell me I shouldn't exist, that's not an online conversation.
No. And that's not a conversation. That's just, yeah, yeah. That's not a
It's
conversation.
pontification. You want to be heard? Fine. Go to Reddit,
Yeah.
throw it in there, have
Yep.
those conversations. But what I am trying to do is put a lot of positivity out there. And if you're not supporting that, then it's the wrong avenue for that type of interaction.
Speaking of what you're doing and what you're putting out, how did you come up with this? Where, why, what was the impetus behind starting the podcast?
So it's a long time in the making, if you will, but I wanted to better understand and have conversations and create a space where I can dissect how we have become parents, right? And fathernetics for me is not just the male version of parenting.
Mhm.
It's a role, right? So it's a lot of the information, the knowledge, the experience that we have gotten from our parents, our fathers, that may be good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, we are who we are because we've said, hey, we like what we saw there. I want to be that. Or I don't like what I saw there. I will never do that
Mhm.
as a parent. And in some situations, we overcorrect and we've gone too far into the correction side, and now we're raising sheltered kids, or we're helicopter parents, or perhaps we do too much free range and we're not mindful of right. So
Mhm.
there's no right or wrong. It's really about finding the right formula that makes sense for their families. So it's not only for those who are fathers today, it's for those that have had fathers and can identify who they are today based on that.
Mhm.
And for those that are parents, for us to better understand what they're going to be sharing with their kids in the next generation. Are you going to continue to share that positive thing that you learned from your parents? What are the things that you're going to say, nope, not in my house? And why do you feel that way?
Mhm.
In today's generation, with the advent of school shootings, which is something that is really stressful for me because my kid just started seventh grade. So now he's in a bigger school. And so it's like
Mhm.
the lockdown drills is normal for him. He's like, yeah, we just had a lockdown drill on Tuesday. It's like, and they send home the notices and they text message, hey, it's just a drill today. Just so if you see it on the news somewhere, just know it's not real. It's a drill. They have to do that so you
Wow.
don't freak. So those are the conversations I want to have. What are the impacts of politics on your life as a parent? Are you paying attention? Are you not paying attention? Does it scare you? Does it worry you? How old are your kids? Are they consuming this by way of just being associated Jacob is 12, he's already exposed to that. He knows who Trump is. He knows who Joe Biden is. He knows who Kamala is. He knows who Obama is. He knows who, JD Vance is. He knows from a very high level what they stand for and what the potential impacts to our family would be should certain things come to pass. But he also knows that we don't attack people for having their views,
Right.
especially his peers. His peers have the views of their parents.
Sure.
Right? They haven't, other 12-year-olds aren't sitting at a computer doing research on politics. So
No.
maybe these aren't conversations you have at school, but if you do, just, listen, say that's not for me, here's why, and move on. We don't need to, well, we don't like each other because he's a Trump supporter. Let's leave that type of conversation to the adults because then it comes with all sorts of stuff that we don't need to get into. But yeah.
I love that you're giving the platform space to really represent anyone.
Mm-hmm. If you've had a dad, then the podcast is for you. If you're a single parent, or if you're a single mom, more specifically, there are some fatherhood qualities that you're bringing to the table as well, because you've had a dad. As a mom, you've had a dad. You've seen some things your dad has done, and you are either bringing that with you or deciding what not to bring with you into that dynamic. And if you're an uncle, a brother, a coach that is a father figure, or a pastor that it's a father figure, you're all part of that dynamic as well.
Sure.
So it's really the grand circle of who we are today. I am the way I am because of my father, and certainly because of some of the adult males in my life that I love and appreciate, and some of them that I can't stand and have decided I cannot and will not represent that. So,
Yes.
it's who we are. So that's really what we dive into.
It's beautiful. You have a podcast, you have a family, and you've written a book. Can you give I mean, you briefly touched on it before, but you said that you sat down and put this book together because there wasn't anything out there. Is it a step by step? Is it just a high level overview of everything that you encountered on your journey? Is it the emotion piece? We had to do this part, it made me feel this. Tell everybody a little bit more about the book.
So it is all of the above.
Okay.
The book's name is Paper Cradles, and it has to do, the paper part is all the legalities and the paperwork that you have to fill out, and the cradle part is obviously the kids. So the journey really starts from the start of that adoption process and us deciding to go down that route. So I do go into some level of detail of the steps that we took in order to go through the adoption process, from walking in the door all the way through, the court systems and the attorneys and the back and forth with the adoptive parents and the home inspection, which not a lot of people are familiar with, and where we fell down, where we picked up, what we thought that was kind of torn away, if you will, because you always make assumptions, and then it's like, no, thanks, but that's not what we're doing here. That happens in life with anything. And then we kind of go through, I kind of go through and explain the dynamics of what we used to do before we were parents, and now doing something similar as parents. It's so different. For example, we've done a lot of traveling as individuals. Myself and Nicholas, we'll just pick up and go, right? And all we have to do is worry about getting there, having fun, and then heading back home. But when you have a kid, it's a little different, because now you have extra luggage, you have extra passports, you have to make sure that they are within eyesight, right? You can't hold a hand, you can't get lost in the crowd. You have to, like, eye contact and, behave on an airplane. Now you have to bring, the toys and the books and the games, and you have to make sure they're cared for. You have to pack, extra stuff for spills and change of shirts. And so it's all the extra stuff that you never needed to do before.
Yep.
But you kind of discover what you need as it happens,
Oh,
right?
that
That
makes
go
sense.
back that's in the trunk of your car that you never thought you would ever need, you now have it because you felt, or you've been in a situation, should I say, where you kind of needed that,
Yep.
right? I wish I had a change of clothes for this kid that just fell in this puddle of mud out of nowhere, like randomly, like the puddle is way over there and somehow you found a way to fall.
It's like a magnet.
I oh man, if it's there, they will find it. And
Yep.
I love it because I think they're drawn to it just because it's something to do when your
Sure.
kids are bored, which is an okay thing. Kids have to learn how to be bored. And I think a
Yes.
lot of parents kind of sidestep that. Oh, let's give them something to do. Here's a tablet. Here's a video game. Here's no. When we're sitting at this dinner table at a restaurant, you can be bored.
Yep.
Let's find a way to engage each other. So just going down a rabbit hole with that, we find different ways to engage with our kid at dinner. We'll bring like a card game, or we'll try to create an atmosphere where it's engaging so that they don't feel like they're the kid at the table and then the
Mm,
adults are talking, but they're not included.
right.
So I think that's just something that we've learned over time. Granted, we didn't have it right from day one, but we learned it over time. So
Yep. But that's parenting 101, right? You don't know what you don't know, but you learn lots along the way, and you just keep building your repertoire of knowledge and skills that you can bring forward, and some of them will work better than others, and that's how it's supposed to be.
and that's what I want people to hear on the podcast as well. Hey, I did that and somebody else did that too. Okay, I'm not crazy for thinking that that's what I should do.
Yep.
Or, someone who's hesitating on I always use this as an example because to me, and it's a personal choice of having kids always attached to tablets. You're in the car, you're on a tablet. You're at the restaurant, you're on a tablet. You're walking through the mall, you're on a tablet. It's like, okay, so when are you managing this? Because the moment you take the tablet away, the kid freaks out. And it's like, well, that is what you've taught them.
Right.
Whether you meant to teach them that or not, that is what you taught them.
It is.
So I want people to hear different thoughts on that. How did that come to be? Why do you do that? And not necessarily need to be admonished, right? Because I don't do it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I mean, there are circumstances where you need to. So I just want to hear what the thoughts on that is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not the only book that you've written, though, and published.
Oh, you've been digging around. Yes. So the first book that I wrote is called Elysium.
Right.
And this comes from, we went on vacation to St. Thomas and I had such a fantastic time there. I used that as the backdrop to Elysium. What I often see in the literary world is a lot of novels that are queer oriented that are all romance driven or some sort of fantasy driven type of situation, which is fine. I mean, that's
It's a
necessary for
genre.
us to be able to, right? Because someone like myself, I'm 45 years old. I never had those high school experiences of, being able to see someone from across the hall and wave, and now we're dating and we're holding hands through high school, and I didn't get that.
Right.
So it's kind of cool to read stuff like that, and you can put your mind back there and dream a little bit. My book is a sci-fi book that just so happens to have a gay character. So it is not a romance novel, right? There are some romantic parts to it, and finding someone to tie romantically to the character in the book. But it is by no means a romance novel. I don't spend a lot of time, talking about sex or things of that nature. It is really a sci-fi novel with some romantic threads woven through that has two gay characters, everyone else is straight. So I wanted to kind of start to infuse that into the world so that our LGBTQ couples and kids and those who read books don't always have to read a romantic novel that is salacious, if you will, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean they quite descriptive
Yes.
in a lot of cases, which makes it an adult book, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not just some sort of a fantasy novel to read because it's fun.
Yeah. I just
So that's the gist of it.
I love that though, and we do need more of that representation where people who are in a variety of different roles in life, doing a variety of different things, a variety of different plots, just happen to be queer.
Yeah, I mean that's real life.
It
That's real life.
it
All of our
is.
the CEOs and CFOs and our professional worlds, you would never know because they're not leading with I'm gay. They're leading with I'm a professional
Mm.
or I'm a businessman or I'm a dad or I am a vlogger and I just happen to be gay.
Yeah. I recognize you have a hard stop shortly, but before I let you go, I have to ask you, what is your very, very favorite part of parenting your child?
So what I will say is every now and again I look up and I see a different kid and he's taller, he has more hair, he's interested in girls now, and it's like, where'd the time go? Now I'm very aware of the time, right? Because there's a lot of shifting and molding that we've had to do to kind of peel back layers of traumatic events and bad habits and stuff like that, and that in itself is a labor of love. But just seeing him grow into an individual that has his own thoughts and his own frustrations, and it's really awesome to see him go from the kid that throws himself on the ground screaming and hollering to someone who's a little bit more mannered.
Yep.
Granted, he's not all the way there. He still has his moments,
Hmm.
but that's growth. That is largely due to what Nicholas and I have done with him.
Right.
And I think parents need to take the time to pat themselves on the back. This job is thankless to a certain degree, right? When they become adults, you may get a thank you during your birthday or Father's Day or
Right.
Mother's Day,
Right.
right? But it is also the long game,
Mhm.
right? We're in it to the end. So it is an opportunity to appreciate the journey. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but what I love the best about parenthood is just seeing the growth year over year.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it is fun. And it is something that brand new parents haven't experienced yet.
Mhm.
And they have that to look forward to, right? Which is fun.
That does require time,
Hmm.
right? It's been 8 years, so I can see, 8 years ago to today, that is quite the difference.
Sure.
But until you take a breath and look up, these are things that you won't easily notice because you see your kids every day,
Right.
right? As opposed to a grandma that sees them twice a year and they're like, "Oh my God, you got so big." And you're like, "What do you mean? He's the same height." No, he's not. He's grown 2 inches. Like,
Exactly. Yep.
I love it. I love it.
Remind everybody the name of your podcast and where they can find it.
So Fathernetics is on Instagram. It's a podcast as well. It can be found on Apple, on Spotify, also on YouTube. And then the name of the book is Paper Cradles, which you can also find by way of Fathernetics in case you were interested. And the other book is Elysium. Again, sci-fi, time travel, adventure. It just happens to have some really cool gay characters for you guys to consume. So
Thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate this, Sam. This has been fantastic. We should do this again at some point.
100%. As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the dish with one spoon wampum belt covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable pasts and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.